Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to the 5th meeting of the Technical Commission. Today, under the order of business, we'll consider the draft report of Agenda 27 to be followed by that of 28, 29, and 30 in that order. So, the draft text for the general section of the Technical Commission's report and agenda item 27 are in working paper 570. So we will start with WP 570. So the first part of the report deals with the general text. It starts with the meetings held by the Commission. This is the 5th meeting, isn't it? Then the election of officers for the meeting, the participants, the Secretary of the Commission, in the person of our Director of Air Navigation Bureau. Then it talks about the other officers assisting, and the agenda and general working arrangements. Any comments on this part of the report? I see no request for the floor. Thank you very much. So this concludes the first part of the consideration of working paper 570. We now go on to the report of agenda item 27, annual reports of the Council for the Assembly for 2016, 2017, 2018, and the supplementary report covering the first 6 months of 2019. So take 27.1 and 27.2. No requests, so thank you very much. So we have adopted the draft text for the general section and the report of agenda item 27 for presentation to the plenary. Thank you very much. We will move straight to working paper 571, which provides the draft text for the report on agenda item 28. You remember agenda item 28 dealt with aviation safety and air navigation policy. We will take 28.1 to 28.3 on the Gasp. (28.4 to 7). That's pages 2 and 3. Australia, sorry, Netherlands first. Netherlands, then Australia.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I would like to make a few comments on the paragraphs on the Global Air Navigation Plan, starting with paragraph 28.4. At the end of this paragraph, I would like to propose to add the following words, reading, and agreed to apply version control to further updates. That would mean that the whole sentence would read, the last sentence of this paragraph, the Commission recommended that the Assembly endorse the 6th edition of the GAMP, including its maintenance process, and agreed to apply version control to further updates.
And agreed to apply version control. Thank you, Australia. So, Netherlands, yeah. So, the Commission doesn't have the mandate to apply version control to future updates. So we'll rather say, and recommended, recommended to apply, we'll recommend to Council to apply version control of future updates. I hope your view has been captured and the Secretariat will find appropriate wording. Thank you very much. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. Paragraph 28.5, in relation to the Australian paper, we have some minor suggestions. In the first sentence, it says, which recognise the GAMP as the locus. I think that probably should be focus. And it goes on to say, consider improving the executive summary. It should be of the next edition of the GAMP for use by all states. The next sentence, the Commission was informed that ICAO had formed. I think it's not actually finalised yet, so it probably should say was forming and I think we should give it the correct title, a GAMP study group. And at the end of that sentence, we'd like it to reflect the Australian paper, which I think was supported, and say that and the Commission asks that consideration should be given to model the GAMP study group on the Gasp study group. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Australia, for your intervention. I want the Secretary to clarify whether the improvement in the executive's summary will apply to the 7th edition or to current edition, and suggested the use of the word locus instead of focus. Isn't too much. It's more of semantics, but I'll leave the floor to the Secretariat.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone, and thanks Netherlands and Australia for the proposals. First of all, regarding the Netherlands proposal was already covered by the chair. We're going to find the right words to reflect in the report. Regarding the proposals from Australia, we normally don't nominate the name of the group of experts in the report because in the future we may change the name for any reason. So we prefer to keep just a group of experts, not mentioning the name of the GAMP study group. And regarding the model, this is something that we actually didn't discuss during the week, and because of the nature of the two groups, they are different, one dealing with 10 key performance areas, or more specifically 11 key performance areas, and the other group dealing with only one key performance area. We would prefer to have a specific model for each group, considering the difference in the scope of them. So we would like to keep the text as is. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Netherlands, you want the floor again?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I also have a few comments on the other paragraphs that you introduced. So could I continue with 28.5?
Yeah, go ahead.
On 28.5, I would propose to, in the last sentence of this paragraph, to add one extra recommendation from the Air Navigation Conference 13, namely recommendation 1.2/1, which is about mapping the strategic level of the GAMP and the technical level. And this proposal was made in an intervention by Portugal in a meeting, and I think it got support. Thank you.
Thank you, Netherlands. Okay, Secretariat will check if it was really supported, it will reflect. As we go along, may I remind distinguished delegates that we are not here to reopen debates. We have reports of proceedings for the first 4 meetings, and we want to check the report for accuracy to make sure that the contents truly reflect proceedings. We will not restart lengthy debates, so that if you have a proposed amendment to the report, just be specific. You can say, I note paragraph 28.5 contains this. I think this was omitted, or could it be rephrased this way? That way will make a lot of progress, but will not start another lengthy debate. Thank you very much. So we've considered up to 28.7. We move to page, the next page, from 28.8 to 28.16, or let's say up to 28.18 to end the consideration of the GAMP. 28.8 to 28.18. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to 28.9, the Commission noted the basic building block front and agreed that it's highlighted and constitutes the baseline. The Commission was informed the implementation of globalization, that's fine, but we also discussed the need for clear clarification between the BBB framework and the ASBU framework, or whatever you want to call the ASBUs. That was definitely discussed, and I thought definitely agreed that clarification should be provided. And just, Chair, in relation to your comment then, I just would be careful that you indicated that there were several papers that sort of were agreed but weren't discussed. If they're not now appearing in this report, I think you can expect a few states to say, well, why has this been omitted? So I just express some caution there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Australia. So Secretariat has noted and will be incorporated the need for clarification between the BBB and ASBU frameworks. Okay, thank you. Any other comments up to 28.18? Netherlands.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And well, I'd like to come in the last time on this issue of the GAMP, and specifically on item 28.6. There is about halfway the paragraph, there is the sentence, the Commission agreed that ICAO should make use of partnerships with large-scale ATM modernization programs for the development of ASBU elements. I would like to propose to add to that sentence and related ICAO provisions. This was part of the working paper that we presented in the meeting, and I think also that paper got the support. Thank you.
Thank you, Netherlands. I think it will be incorporated. Thank you. So we move on to resolution 28/1, ICAO Global Planning for Safety and Air Navigation. So we consider the entire resolution up to paragraph 10. Thank you. No request for the floor. We go on to Appendix A on the Gasp, Global Aviation Safety Plan. So most of you are familiar with the ICAO format for editing, where there is a new text, is shaded gray, and where an existing text is deleted, is struck through. You see a black line through it, so this provides guidance. No request for the floor. Appendix B on the Global Air Navigation Plan, GAMP. So up to paragraph 9. Then 28.19, safety management policy. Okay. That's page 9. Still on page 9, we look at resolution 28/2, protection of accident and incident investigation records. We continue with resolution 28/3 on page 2810, page 10. The resolution runs through to page 13. Thank you. The room is so quiet this morning. Looks like we haven't had breakfast. We continue with results of the 13th Air Navigation Conference, page 13. That's 28.24 up to 28.27. Page 14, consolidated statement of continuing ICAO policies, 28, and 2829. We'll continue with resolution 28/4, consolidated statement of ICAO continuing and consolidated statement of continuing ICAO policies and associated practices related specifically to air navigation. That's on page 14 up to 15. We go to Appendix A, page 15, air navigation meetings of worldwide scope. Page 16, associated practices. We look at 1 to 5. We continue with Appendix B on page 17, panels of the Air Navigation Commission. Appendix C, certificates of airworthiness, certificates of competency, and licenses of flight crews. Okay, it looks like Appendix B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O do not have any changes at all. They were approved at previous assembly, so we need not touch them. So thank you very much. Japan, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, all. I had a very good breakfast, so I'm so energetic. So no, Japan agree on this minutes, but for the next time, because the text in the report, some parts are changed based on the discussion, but it's not. I cannot see that, it is highlighted, but it's a very same way with existing in the highlight. So it's better to be more, provide some difference that if you change based on the discussion with the technical commission, and then people can understand. So, but I checked, but that change is Japan accept. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. Japan, your point is noted. Thank you very much. So this completes consideration of the report on agenda item 20, WP 571. So, see no further requests for the floor. So thank you very much. So the draft report on agenda item 28 is adopted for consideration at the plenary. Thank you very much. We continue with consideration of working paper 583, which is the draft text for the report on agenda item 29. Agenda item 29 covered aviation safety and air navigation regional implementation coordination mechanisms. So we start with page 1 and consider 29.1 up to 29.7, pages 1 and 2. Slovakia.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to you all. On behalf of the member states of the European Union and the ECAC region, we would have, in this portion of the report you just mentioned, we would have two proposals. In paragraph 29.1, on the working paper from the Council 53, we feel that it was not sufficiently emphasized the message from the discussion about the strengthening cooperation between the peers and about the potential benefits of this enhancement of cooperation. That is why we would like to propose to add to the end of this paragraph following sentence. It was also acknowledged that a more structured and focused cooperation between peers is required to deliver operational and technical efficiencies at interfaces between ICAO regions.
Thank you.
If I may,
Yeah, continue,
Mr. Chair, in the similar spirit to the paragraph 29.3, to the working paper 276 presented by Canada, we would like to add to the end of the paragraph just two words, between regions. So following sentence, efficient cooperation between regions.
Thank you, Slovakia. Your proposals to add to 29.1 and 29.3 noted and will be incorporated. Yeah. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Well, first of all, Canada would agree with the recommendation in 29.3, so I'll thank Slovakia for recommending that addition to the end of that paragraph. But regarding 29.2, which discusses working paper 334, the Commission noted on the floor that related to the last paragraph, it talks about in close coordination with USOAP to identify a workable solution. Canada would recommend adding the word possible incorporation, as the discussion on the floor was not confirmed that this must happen, but rather be an option for consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Canada, please come again. Where do you want the insertion to be made? I know it's on 29.2, but could you...
29.2 in the last paragraph.
Last paragraph,
in the last
yeah.
sentence, in fact, workable solution for possible incorporation into regional air navigation and or aviation safety plans.
Okay, so possible incorporation.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Canada.
Thank you.
Botswana.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. I would suggest on the insertion that was suggested by Slovakia, given the number of states or regions, that instead of between them, be among them. Thank you, Chair.
Botswana proposes replacing between them with among them. That's okay. So we continue with our consideration. We move to Resolution 29.1 on regional implementation support mechanisms. That's on page 2. Resolution continues to page 3 up to 7. Still on page 3, we continue with regional cooperation in accident and incident investigation. That's from 29.8 all the way to 29.12 on page 5. Slovakia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair, for coming back again. In regards to the paragraph 29.9, on the working paper 111, presented by Finland on behalf of EU and ICAO and Eurocontrol, we are missing a message which was taken in the working paper, more precisely in the recommendation B of the working paper, and this was also emphasized in the discussion of this working paper. So that is why we would like to add, it is in the second part of the second half of the paragraph, behind a sentence which begins with the Commission agreed, blah, blah, blah. We would like, after the Commission, to add the following text. Acknowledged that this is important to promote mutual support and foster regional cooperation to ensure effective and independent investigation. And then the sentence follows. Thank you very much.
We're trying to capture your intervention, so a bit slowly, and go at it again.
In the sentence which begins with the Commission agreed that Doc 9946, we would like to, after the Commission, add following text. Acknowledged that it is important to promote mutual support and foster regional cooperation to ensure effective and independent investigations. And then the text follows.
Okay, thank you very much, Slovakia, to reflect in the report. So we move on to page 29.5 on regional safety oversight organizations. And that covers 2913 to 2917. The next item is GASO's Global Aviation Safety Oversight System. And that is covered under 2918 to 2921, pages 6 and 7. 2918 to 2921, pages 6 and 7. I see no request for the floor. We'll continue with other regional initiatives on pages 7 and 8. That is 2922 to 2925. Thank you. We continue with Resolution 29/2, Regional Cooperation and Assistance to resolve safety deficiencies, establishing priorities, and setting measurable targets. We consider the first page of the resolution on page 29.8, page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Australia.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just seek clarification on, I think it's now 4, at the top of 2910, directs the Council to support the implementation and further development of GASOS. Is the resolution bound by the overarching statement subject to budget resources in ICAO?
Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. That statement is covered by that statement because the current work program is not integrated into the regular program assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat, for the clarification. Then page 11, last page. See no request for the floor. This concludes consideration of the report on agenda item 29, WP5A3. Senegal, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I would just like to come back to page 11 to ask for some clarification on point 4. When we say directs the Council to support the implementation and further development regarding the necessary measures, we're talking about emphasized measurements. What does the Secretariat mean here? We've already developed the GASOS, and it's very clear what it is. So what do we mean by strengthened measures?
Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. The GASOS program that was approved by the council this summer is implementing level 1 and level 2 delegation capability for the participating RSOOs. The council directed the Secretariat to continue working with the legal community in the states and interested organizations so that we can continue to refine the legal frameworks related to both level 2 and level 3 delegation responsibilities. This work will continue through the triennium as resources permit, along with further refinements in the methodology for implementation related to cost benefit and the effective implementation of the program through the triennium. And that's the gist of what the council was looking for in the draft to make sure that the Secretariat continues to refine and improve the program over the triennium. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, for the clarification. So it's work in progress. Senegal, you have the floor again.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would like the French version, the drafting and the wording to be looked at again to reflect what the Secretary just said, because as it is written, that's not what it says to me. So I would like the Secretariat to follow up with that, please, and look at the wording again so that it can be reflect the continuing work as it will unfold. Thank you.
Thank you. Secretariat has taken notes. We'll make sure that the English and French texts are aligned and the word continuing will reflect to indicate that it's work in progress. Thank you very much. I see no further request for the floor. So the Technical Commission, after consideration of the draft report as adopted the report on agenda item 29 for consideration at the plenary. Thank you very much. We'll continue with working paper 577, which deals with the report on agenda item 30. WP 577, agenda item 30. As you recall, agenda item 30 dealt with other issues to be considered by the Technical Commission. So we will start with page 1, remotely piloted aircraft systems, RPAS, and air traffic management. We'll consider 30.1 and 30.2. Norway.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all. We would like to propose some added text to paragraph 3015, which we feel more reflects the discussion on this item. On the second sentence, starts with the Commission agreed with the proposal. We proposed to add new text and requested the Council to act with urgency on measures aiming at the elimination of harmful interference to GNSS. Stop. I repeat the whole sentence. The Commission agreed with the proposal and requested the Council to act with urgency on measures aiming at the elimination of harmful interference to GNSS. Stop. Then last sentence.
No way. We'll come to that. Now we're on 30.1 and 30.2. I'll give the floor to you again later on. Thank you. So 30.1 and 30.2 on RPAS and air traffic management. Okay, we'll go to resolution 31 on new entrants. That's on page 1. Runs all the way to page 2. The preambular clauses, then the assembly directs ICAO, etc.
I have a small editorial that I'd like to ask.
Okay. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, or excuse me, Mr. Chairman. The Secretariat in cross-bureau coordination, we've discovered in the Assembly paragraph 3 on page 30.-2, where we say regularity, environmental sustainability. To harmonize with text in the executive, we'd like to say environmental protection versus sustainability. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Secretariat, for the addition. Argentina, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. I don't have any comment with respect to the Spanish version, since the Spanish version for new entrants is new participants or new entrants. But I'm wondering whether we should check the Spanish translation in Annex 16. In English, we have the definition of new entrants in that resolution. And in Annex 16.4, then we have other concepts. So we need to stick to that particular wording. Otherwise, we are going to generate confusion.
Okay, noted. But do you have a proposal for the Spanish wording? English is new entrants.
It's the same issue in English. En la versión española está.
Well, in the Spanish version, it's fine, but I'm just wondering about the English version, because it's not the same as what you're seeing in Annex 16.4. They have different English in there, and not new entrants.
Okay, so you're talking about, alignment. It's more of maintenance of the annexes. That's something the Air Navigation Bureau could look at. But for the purpose of this conclusion, we have new entrants, which is English, and Spanish is okay. But basically, you're saying that it's inconsistency with Annex 16 provisions, and Secretary could look at that later on as part of their routine maintenance of the annexes. Thank you very much. So we'll continue. Page 2, 30.3, all the way to 30.13. 30.30 on page 4. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to 30.3, the last sentence, the Commission acknowledged that the topic deserved consideration as one means of facilitating UAS integration and recommended that relevant expert groups be briefed on the outcomes of the pilot project and that the ICAO Council consider conducting a preliminary feasibility analysis. That does not sound like something like the Council would do. So I'm wondering whether the preliminary feasibility analysis might actually be linked with the relevant expert group. Thank you, Chair.
Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. The council will direct the Secretariat to do that work. All of our resolution text essentially directs the council or directs the Secretary General generally. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. ACI, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all. My point relates to paragraph 30.9. Is it appropriate to raise that now?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I would like to intervene as follows. On behalf of ACI, CANSO, IATA, IFALPA, and IFATCA, in paragraph 30.9, relating to Working Paper 196, we would propose to add something to the sentence at the end of the report. The offer from the industry to assist ICAO in the drafting of suitable guidance material was supported by the committee, or words to that effect. We would like to add this sentence since there was support from several member states for this. One member state actually stated, this initiative addresses the increasing safety hazard to aviation caused by unmanned aircraft systems. And for the record, for the scope of this hazard, it directly causes a risk to international civil aviation operations. The industry presents a proposal from hands-on experience with the hazards from unauthorized unmanned aircraft systems, and the industry is offering support to address this matter. So if our addition could be considered, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, ACI. Yeah, I think I agree with your point. Yeah, indeed, the industry made the offer to assist ICAO. So it will be incorporated in the report to the plenary.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We'll continue with airport operations and infrastructure on page 4. We'll look at 3014 all the way to 3018 on page 5. Norway.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for giving me the floor a second time. We have a proposal on paragraph 3015, second sentence, which start with the Commission agreed with the proposal and then proposed new text and requested the Council to act with urgency on measures aiming at the elimination of harmful interference to GNSS. Stop. Then last part, it was noted that the action for ICAO were within the scope of the existing working program. We feel this more reflect the discussion that on this item. Thank you.
Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Urgency is in the eye of the beholder. At ICAO, urgent means that the council will be able to take this up probably in the winter or spring session. And this is within the work program. However, recognize that over 25% of the work program is currently unfunded. So the prioritization will be considered by the council with the advice from the commission. Thank you. And also, it's been noted to me that the language would be to recommended instead of requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. So Australia's point has been noted, but it will be tweaked a bit to reflect the comments made by the Secretary. Norway, sorry. I keep on confusing Norway and Australia. Australia is right in front of me. Thank you. We continue with resolution 30/2, global provisions for design, certification and operation of water aerodromes, page 5. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning to all. We support the proposal made by the Norwegian delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Germany. It will be incorporated as I indicated. Thank you. So page 5, resolution 30/2, global provisions for design, certification, and operations of water aerodromes. Okay, then we continue on page 5, 3019, all the way to 3023 on page 6. Still on page 6, we'll look at flight operations 3024. Ends on 3033. But we'll consider page 6 now. And we'll move on to page 7, 3025 to 3029. ICAO, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Our intervention is regarding paragraph 3028, and in the 8th line, it currently reads, some sectors of the industry. ICAO, the manufacturing industry, was the only organization which made an intervention at this stage, and we would appreciate the indulgence of the Secretariat that more specific language identifying the aerospace manufacturing industry with that date would be used. I have a second point as well on the 10th line. Currently reads to conduct a survey, and we think it would be appropriate to add as soon as possible immediately after that.
Okay, ACCI, your points noted. Replace some sectors, specifically with aerospace industry, then add as soon as possible to the conductor survey as soon as possible. I'm sure the Secretariat is fine with it. Thank you very much. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, same paragraph. The first sentence, we'd like it to be completed as follows. It says in distress in Annex 6, Part 1, and we'd like it to read to reflect our paper and the need to improve global implementation of ICAO Annex 6 and Annex 12, full stop. In relation to the second last sentence, the Commission noted I think it's not quite conveyed how we think it should be. It should be noted the challenges for member states. It's not just the industry, it's for member states and industry to meet this requirement. The next sentence, while there was some support, I think it should say, I don't think it was overwhelming support, Commission recommended, yes, that's fine, but I think it just should properly reflect the discussion and the papers by Australia and the Russian Federation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so the first part, you're talking about challenges, not only by industry, but member states as well. Now, the second part, you were saying that there was considerable support to retain applicability. Is that what you want reflected? But what is your proposal specifically?
My specific proposal says that while there was some support.
Rather than support, there was some support. So the word some to be Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. We can accept that. However, I would note that most of the room was silent. So that would be taken as support, except for the states that intervened saying that they had a concern. So some or support is subjective, but we'll take the language as proposed by Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Austria.
Good morning and thank you, Mr. Chair. Concerning the point 3027 on the last sentence of the Commission recommendation, it is written the Commission recommends that a group of experts review and so on. To be more precise, there was not a discussion to create any new group, and I would like to propose following changes. The Commission recommends that an existing group of experts review. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Could we make it appropriate group of experts? Okay, that's fine with Austria. Thank you. United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United States would like to, regarding these interventions, maintain the language as written in the report. We feel that most accurately demonstrates what was discussed during the proceedings. Thank you.
US, is it the entire report or a specific paragraph you are referring to? United States, please clarify.
There we go, sorry. That's regarding 30.28, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Last sentence in particular. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Secretary.
Thank you, Chair. See if I can split this down the middle. Aerospace industry, we think would be acceptable to take. And if I can ask for Australia's indulgence, we'll simply say support, but we'll appreciate that that support may be soft and that the Council is going to be looking at this to get a survey back out to the states as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, for the compromise. South Africa.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Well, if that's, in fact, we support what has been said by the Secretariat. Just to highlight the importance of the people not intervening, because we want to save time. We're saying those that support should not necessarily take the floor, and then it's those that have an objection. So now, if we want to measure that, and then we say not many people came and say support, we are encouraging that a lot of states will take the floor and say support, support, so that it should not be interpreted as some support. So I think support is okay, and then we support the keeping the language as per the suggestion of the Secretariat. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
South Africa, point noted. Yeah, and that's why Secretariat suggested that we just indicate there was support. We don't qualify the degree of support, whether overwhelming, a little, or there was support. Thank you. Netherlands, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to come back to 30.27, where there was the proposal from Austria to speak about an existing group of experts, and your counter-proposal was to use the word appropriate. Yeah, I could have nothing against the word appropriate, but I think the message was The existing was the message or the change requested for, and I don't think that is fully covered by using appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Will Secretary want to comment on that?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, we suggest to you, good morning everybody. We're suggesting to you that we tend to use appropriate expert group or expert groups just to be fair to the council, to let them make the decision for themselves. If they determine that the work program of the existing group is so excessive that they need to set up a specialized group, or they find that they need to get new members from different areas of expertise during their discussions, and then they might get advice from the Air Navigation Commission as well. Not even the Secretariat gets involved in these discussions, but we certainly wouldn't hold back the Council from making the appropriate decision once they have seen all the criteria that has been provided to them by the Commission, as well as this report. So we tend to stick with the word appropriate because we use that word all the time. So I'll leave that with you.
Thank you, Secretary, for the clarification. I hope Netherlands is okay. ICAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just bouncing back, sorry, on 3028. I just want to be sure of what we've agreed. So we're going to retain the aerospace industry part. Are we also retaining the as soon as possible part of the intervention that I made?
I think we've agreed. Okay, Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. So appreciating the intervention and the general, the discussion did not say as soon as possible yesterday. This is a report of the discussion. So we can't amend it to add the inference that's being suggested now because it's being raised now. However, the discussion and the items in the working paper clearly require that we do this in the most appropriate time frame to support any changes that might be required by the Commission and the Council. So while we won't adopt the change, at the suggestion of the United States that we keep the report as close to the fidelity of what was discussed or introduced yesterday, the Secretariat will endeavor to make sure that the Commission and the Council have the necessary material to take action as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, for the clarification. We'll go to page 8 and consider items paragraphs 3030 to 3033. We'll continue at the bottom of page 8, competencies and medical. And we'll look at 3034 to 3038. Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Regarding paragraph 30.37, regarding medical, the last second sentence, the Commission agreed, blah, blah. Japan would like to add at the end of this sentence, after these subjects, based on the discussion on the Technical Commission. So, with due consideration of the legal framework on medical information protection, after these subjects, I will repeat. So Japan proposed to add after these subjects with due consideration of the legal framework on medical information protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. I think the Secretariat is okay with it. We will include the amendment with due consideration of the legal framework on medical information protection. Thank you. Franz, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. We would like to make a proposal for paragraph 3034, the fourth sentence. We would like to add, after automation dependency, add the following text. Considering the broader concept of training and the previous work of ICAO on automation dependency and its implementation, period. Thank you, sir.
Franz, kindly repeat your
Oui,
proposal.
bien sûr.
Certainly. So in paragraph 3034, after defining after automation dependency, considering the broader context of training based on competency, previous work of ICAO on OCOP and its implementation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Franz. Any objection to Francis' proposal? I see none. So it will be incorporated. So after automation dependency, considering the broader context of training based on competency and previous work of ICAO and its implementation. Okay. Thank you very much, Franz. Bochona, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I rather suspect it's going to read convoluted. Maybe to split the sentence, but I don't know where.
Okay, if we accept in principle, we can leave the Secretariat to do the editorial. Yeah, so, yeah, I also realized it was a bit long, but I knew Secretariat will, do the editing. So that's fine.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we continue on page 10, safety management. We will consider paragraphs 30, 39 to 30, 42. Page 10. We'll move on to page 11, accident investigation and airspace issues. We'll look at the whole of page 11, 3043 to 3046. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would like to propose to include a little phrase on the third phrase that starts with the Commission agreed to refer the establishment of a psychophysical monitoring program for investigators and after taking into account.
Okay, Brazil, help me out. Which paragraph are you referring to?
Sorry, 3044.
3044, thank you.
Sorry. So the third phrase of the 3044, the Commission agreed to refer to the establishment of a psychophysical monitoring program for investigators, taking into account, I would add, taking into account the perspectives expressed in the discussion, existing priorities, and so on.
Brazil, that is noted. So we incorporate the perspectives expressed in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
South Africa.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think all the work that the Assembly is giving to the relevant organs will take into account the discussions that took place in the Assembly. So the moment we now only want to specify in one particular area, we might be presupposing that in all the other areas they don't have to take that into consideration. So that is built up on the instruction we are giving to the body itself. So I would definitely advise against putting that wording in the report. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Secretary would agree with the intervention from South Africa. All of the perspectives expressed during the Commission are to be taken into account by the Council and the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat, for the clarification. I hope that satisfies, that's acceptable to Brazil. Thank you very much. We'll continue on page 12. We'll consider 3047 up to 3051. IATA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. On 3047, on the third sentence, after decommission, IATA would suggest the following text. Noted the need to respect the protection principles in Annex 19 and continue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ayata. It will be incorporated. Spain.
Gracias.
I thank you very much, sir. Good morning, everyone. We have a proposal for paragraph 3048 to more adequately reflect our comments related to comments made by the Secretariat on difficulties of providing translation and noting the language barriers. And so the proposal from Spain, if you take a look at the phrase which begins, it's about halfway down the paragraph where it starts, while recognizing the importance for families and accident victims of properly understanding the information contained in final reports of investigations. The Commission also acknowledged that such translation would not only result in a decrease of the resources for the investigation, but would also be a challenge for a state in charge of an investigation, given the many different nationalities involved in any major accident. And so this is where our proposal begins. We'd like to add here, add the following text, and took note of a suggestion to introduce a recommendation to ensure that states who are involved in the investigation, in other words, the states that have accident victims, be in charge of translating documents once the state in charge of the investigation has published the final report. And then in the next sentence, we have another proposal where it says With respect to relevant guidance material, we would say an other relevant information, period.
Okay, Spin, your point is noted. So basically, you want the states or states which are involved in the investigation or in charge of the investigation to be responsible for translating the documents once the final report is published. I'll leave that to Secretariat to the comment.
Good morning. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the intent is understood on the intervention from Spain, that essentially we want to allow a flexibility for other states who may have citizens who were involved in an accident to be in a position to be legitimately able to translate on behalf of the state with the investigation in charge. And so that's something that will have to be nuanced in the report pretty carefully. So if you don't mind, we'll take that offline and make sure that we do that and present it in the final and the plenary. And then the last point there is that other appropriate guidance material, I think, is the appropriate phrase for ICAO in terms of what we publish. Other appropriate material might be published by other bodies associated with ICAO in the development of this material. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. So Secretariat will find a appropriate way of capturing Spain's intervention. DPR Korea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, all distinguished delegates. Regarding the paragraph 3050, I kindly request to add one more word on the last sentence in DPRK full stop. Thank you.
In the airspace of
in the airspace of the
All right, thank you, DPRK. It will be included to support safe operation of international civil aviation in the DPRK. Thank you. Franz, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning, everyone. With respect to 3050, paragraph 3050, we would propose replacing the term in English acknowledge with the term re-emphasize, which I think more adequately reflects the comments made by a number of delegations. Thank you, sir. Now, with regards to 3051, if you take a look at the French version, we need to align it with the English version. And if you will, sir, we will get in direct touch offline with the Secretary to remedy that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Franz, for your intervention. Re-emphasized instead of acknowledged, and alignment of the English and French text offline. Thank you. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciating the wording proposal by France, the Secretariat would prefer to stay with acknowledged. We are a technical organization and we acknowledge the requirements of our implementations here rather than getting into a political discussion in the Technical Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Then page 13, we have 3052 on page 13, paragraph 3052. Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Can I go back to page 30-12 and paragraph 30.50? So first, I would like to clarify what is the addition to this summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The change in 30.50 is in the end of the last sentence of the paragraph to support safe operation of international civil aviation in the DPRK. Thank you.
Japan, you have the floor again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, and also thank you, the Secretariat. I think because adding this phrase will limit the scope, because the last sentence said to support safe operation of international civil aviation. So as Japan acknowledged that Pyongyang FIR also include the sovereignty area of DPRK, also high sea. So I think adding this in the DPRK will limit the responsibility. So I think Japan, I think it's not appropriate to add this sentence in the DPRK in the end of the sentence. Thank you.
Jared?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Noting the intervention from Japan and referring back to the intent of the Council, I would concur that the last sentence, which refers to the Council, should end with to support safe operation of international civil aviation in accordance with the annexes of the Chicago Convention. Thank you.
Thank you. Japan, are you okay with this compromise? So instead of DPRK, after international civil aviation, we add to support safe operation of international civil aviation in accordance with the annexes of the Chicago Convention. Thank you very much. We'll continue with miscellaneous trust framework, remotely piloted aircraft systems, air traffic management. We'll consider paragraphs 3053 all the way to 3062 on page 15. 3053 to 3062. Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to get back to point 30.52. We wanted to interfere in it, but for some reason it just skipped. So I'll be quick. We would like to thank, first of all, the Secretary for the proposed draft report on this agenda item, and in particular for the prepared draft summary of the discussion regarding working paper 170. However, we believe that the provided draft report does not fully reflect the information and comments provided by Ukraine and the majority of states regarding the ongoing issue of the illegal air navigation publications, which are being made by the Russian Federation concerning the Simferopol FIR, in particular the high seas airspace thereof. As it was recalled, the European Air Navigation Planning Group, ENPG, besides establishing Black Sea Task Force, also took decision 51/01 that the Russian Federation be included into European Region Air Navigation Deficiency Table for non-observance on the ICAO annexes 11 and 12.
11 and 15, sorry. For the almost 3 years since the formal recognition of the fact of non-observance of ICAO standards, the situation unfortunately has not improved. Indeed, we cannot neglect the fact that the dedicated BSTF as a part of ENPG has not shown much effectiveness in solving this issue so far, and the additional effective measures should be undertaken by ICAO and the member states concerned. It was also mentioned yesterday during the discussion that the UN General Assembly resolution with regards to the status of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea and the city of Sevastopol. As we take this into consideration, any recognition of such publications made by the Russian Federation or any compromises with regards to them, for no matter reason, will lead to the non-compliance with, as well as violation of the mentioned resolution. This means that the normalization of flight operations within the mentioned portion of airspace can be done in accordance with the existing decisions of the United Nations, including the mentioned resolution and ICAO Council decision, which confirmed that Ukraine is the solely responsible state for the mentioned airspace. It should be noted that Ukraine continues safe provision of air navigation services in accordance with the Chicago Convention and its annexes in the mentioned portion of airspace. And it is true that the BSTF should continue its work dedicated to normalization of the air traffic flow within the Simferopol FAR, but it can only be done in accordance with the ICAO Convention, its annexes, which unfortunately in this case are being violated. And with this regard, we call upon ICAO and member states to take effective measures. And until such effective measures are not taken and the Russian Federation position remains unchanged, we question the ability of the BSTF to solve this issue. That's our main point. And we are ready and willing to actively participate in the work of the Black Sea Task Force, as mentioned in the draft report. But we see no opportunities for much progress in its work until the Russian Federation withdraws its illegal publications concerning the high seas of the Simferopol FAR, as stated above. So, taking this into account, we kindly ask the Assembly, the Secretariat, to reflect this position in the final report. And we would like to say what exactly we would like to change in item 30.52. If you allow me, Mr. Chairman, in the second sentence, which starts from the words "the Commission noted the ongoing measures of Ukraine," we would like to add after the word Ukraine, "in close cooperation with international aviation organizations and state civil aviation authorities." It is important to notice that.
Mr. Chairman, could you ask the gentleman to read his drafting suggestions slowly, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ukraine, please read your proposal very slowly.
Okay, thank you. So the second sentence of the item 30.52 shall be read as we propose as follows. The Commission noted the ongoing measures of Ukraine in close cooperation with international aviation organizations and state civil aviation authorities. Then to facilitate safe provision of air navigation services and to normalize air traffic flows over the high seas within the Simferopol FAR, comma, but expressed concerns, comma, based on the overarching need for all states to comply with the United Nations General Assembly resolutions and the Chicago Convention and its annexes, at the continuation of aeronautical publications by the Russian Federation concerning Simferopol FAR. And then, if we go all the way to the end of this item, we propose to add the following sentence as the last sentence. The Commission also requested ICAO to undertake effective measures to hold accountable member states which violate the Chicago Convention and its annexes, comma, including in case of interference with air navigation services provision in the international airspace, which is under the responsibility of another member state. And that's it. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Secretary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the representative of Ukraine for this lengthy intervention. we cannot reopen the discussion today. The report should indicate a summary of what was discussed yesterday and the views that were expressed by the members in the commission at that time. This is a long-standing issue that the Technical Commission, frankly, did not discuss or deliberate upon any new information. We do believe that the Black Sea Task Force is the best place to progress the technical work necessary for progress in this delicate matter, and we believe that the summary that was provided is the best balanced summary in that regard. There are some elements of the proposal that we might be able to take on board in a small way, but any substantive change of the intervention would not be appropriate in this review of the report as opposed to the discussion yesterday. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretary, for the clarification. And I wish to remind distinguished delegates that we are not here to reopen discussions or debates, but to review the draft reports, and you should go straight to your point, the areas you want amended or sort of changed. I'll give the floor to Botswana now. Botswana, you have the floor.
Okay. I beg your indulgence to revisit 30.50 in regard to the interventions of DPRK, Japan, and the Secretariat. I'd suggest that we maintain the text as is, because if one goes beyond the aspect where we're talking about the operation of the international civil aviation, it says the Commission acknowledges the importance of compliance with applicable United Nations resolutions as well as with the Chicago Convention and its annexes. So addition of Chicago Convention and annexes be repetitious. Thanks.
Okay. I think it's a good point. Any objections to Botswana's suggestion? Because it's already captured in a previous sentence, in line with UN resolutions and annexes to the convention. I see no objection. Thank you very much. So we will maintain the 3050 as is, no change to it. Thank you very much. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to propose a small amendment of 3058 regarding the working paper presented by Finland, 85. We think that the current wording does not really cover the rationale of the working paper, in particular regarding the word advocated. The working paper itself used the word to urge. So having said that, our proposal would be instead to write to advocate collaborative global network-centric planning, to write that the working paper, which invites states and ICAO to advance efforts to implement a collaborative approach. That would be our suggestion. And then I would also make one comment regarding 3052 and working paper 170. Our comment is limited to the fact that few delegations have mentioned the lack of efficacy of the Black Sea Task Force during the discussions, and we would think it's appropriate to include this in the report. Thank you.
Secretariat, you have the floor.
Yes, I'm just thinking about that. First of all, 3052, with respect to the comments by Ukraine. Ukraine, you made a comment in regard to the fourth line, where after the word Ukraine, you said, comma, in close cooperation with international organizations and state civil aviation authorities. I just want to say the Secretariat does not have any problem with that particular proposal. With respect to the efficacy of the Black Sea Task Force, I don't want to reopen discussion, but there was no detailed or comprehensive information that would lead the Commission to a decision that there was a problem within that Black Sea Task Force. And I believe, for instance, that the next meeting is already tentatively planned, but not even that was raised during that meeting. So I think it's in the eye of the beholder as to whether or not that group has an efficacy, to use your word. So I will leave it at that point. And finally, with respect to 3058, you didn't state where you wanted your words to go in, so could you repeat, please, your comments to 3058, explaining which line and at which point the words would be entered, please?
France?
It was Germany.
It was Germany. Germany, yeah.
Okay. Yes, of course. Thank you, Secretariat. I referred to the, oh, sorry, I'm still on the wrong page here. I referred to 3058, the third line, where it says, Eurocontrol, comma, which advocated a collaborative global. So our suggestion is to strike out advocated and instead write invites states and ICAO to advance efforts to implement, and then we continue with a collaborative global approach. Global network-centric planning, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Germany. So, which advocate will be replaced by invite states and ICAO to advance efforts to implement a collaborative, global, etc., etc. Okay, thank you. I think it's acceptable to the Commission. Ukraine wants the floor again. Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really briefly, just wanted to reiterate that our only intention today was to reflect something that was said yesterday and was, in our opinion, should be reflected in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ukraine. France.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recall very well that as regards paragraph 3052, several delegations expressed concern about the continuation of the publication of the AIPs by Russian Federation, including the delegation of Ukraine. And the mentioning proposed by Ukraine to a reference to the United Nations General Assembly resolution seems essential to the extent that it relates to ICAO and the call to ICAO to respect international law. This was indicated in the discussion, and this does truly reflect the discussion. So we support Ukraine's proposals on these 3 points. And we recall the concerns about the publication of the AIPs, and there's a mention of the United Nations General Assembly resolution and the call to action to respect international law. Thank you.
Thank you very much, France. Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciating the interventions by France and the Ukraine, I'm going to suggest the following language that would be similar to what we've used in 30.50. In noting the potential duplicate publication of aeronautical information material in the Black Sea area, the Commission acknowledged the importance of compliance with the applicable United Nations resolutions as well as with the Chicago Convention and its annexes, period. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Secretary, for the compromise. This is a technical commission, as we've said over and over again, and we need to choose our words very, very carefully. So, Secretary has suggested a compromise which will touch on the, multiple publications, aeronautical information publications. They'll couch it appropriately. I see no further requests for the floor on the issue. Then we continue where we left off. We're considering up to 3062 from 3053 on the trust framework, RPAS and ATM, 3053 to 3062. We move on to airport operations and infrastructure on page 15, and we'll consider paragraphs 3063 to 3068. Still on page 16, we'll now consider operations 3069 to 3074 on page 17. Ayata, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. IATA has two comments, one in paragraph 3.71. That's a small suggestion to better reflect the discussion on the third sentence. Add after the Commission noted a number of concerns expressed with the paper. And if I may, on 3073.
Please repeat. Which paragraph are you referring to?
3071.
3071, okay.
30 sentence.
Okay.
Do you want me to repeat?
Yes, please.
After the word the Commission, add noted a number of concerns expressed with the paper.
It's still not clear. Is it the last sentence reads, the Commission agreed that the content of the discussion and the working paper should be referred to the appropriate expert group. And you want to introduce a sentence after that?
I want to introduce a noted a number of concerns expressed during the discussion, sir.
Secretariat.
Okay, just note that you said the sentence that starts with the Commission. If you look at that paragraph, every sentence starts with the Commission. So how about something is the last sentence of 30.71 where it starts the Commission. The Commission, in noting a number of concerns with the paper, agreed that the content of the discussion and the working paper would be referred to the appropriate expert group. Is that acceptable?
That's accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayata.
If I may, I have another comment.
Yes, please go ahead.
3073. Is on the second sentence, at the end of the second sentence, add in consultation with airspace users. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So the Commission acknowledged the importance of developing RMP-AR procedures where applicable and recommended that states consider their use in consultation with airspace users. Thank you very much. Ayata. ICCAIA.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is regarding paragraph 30.74. Again, in the spirit of accurate representation of what occurred here, there were very limited times for intervention. Only one state intervened, and that state strongly supported the recommendations of the paper 272, and there was no opposition vocalized. So we do believe that there needs to be a statement within 3074 that the Commission supported the recommendations of the working paper.
Yeah, thank you. That is true, and Secretariat will capture the appropriate wording for it in the final report to the plenary. Secretariat? Secretariat is fine with your suggestion. Thank you very much. ICCAI. United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm referring to paragraph 30.72. The request is to add at the very end of the paragraph the words, including the actions set out in this paper, including the actions set out in this paper. The rationale being that the Secretariat has captured well the intent of the paper, apart from the fact that there are some additional suggestions for incorporation into the relevant work programme, which we would want to be reassured are being picked up. Thank you.
Secretariat?
I don't have the words, but that last sentence more reflects the work of ICAO up to now, but then you've now gone and included an action proposal together with the existing text. Give me a minute, I'll have to think about it. Thank you for the opportunity for the coordination, and we accept the change just suggested for the end of the sentence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Thank you, UK, for your proposal. Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Norway would like to propose a small change into 3073 on the fourth line after RMP AR procedures, add the word only where applicable. And then propose to add a last sentence at the end. The Commission noted that RNPR procedures are intended for challenging obstacle-rich environments and agree that the use of ICAO standard navigation specification should be preferred. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Spain. Secretariat?
Except for the last 3 or 4 words, which may not be necessary, we'll take the rest of the words if you provide them via text. But I do recall that part of the those words in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary, for the clarification. I see no further requests for the floor. Then we move on to accident investigation, state safety program, and safety management systems. So we'll now consider 30.75 all the way to 30.81. Nicaragua.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Taking into account the need for understanding in Spanish, we would like to have a change in drafting in the very last sentence of 3075. The Commission was informed we want to make sure it's ICAO that's drawing up this guidance material, and they're using the verb in the present tense rather than in the past tense. Right now it says ICAO was drawing up guidance material. We want to make sure it's stating that the ICAO is drawing up guidance material and ensure that it's ICAO that's doing this. Similarly, and I'd like to use the term COSESNA. I include COSESA in there because they did speak as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So inclusion of COSESNA in the opening sentence. Then the last sentence to be in the active rather than passive, and to include ICAO drawing up the guidance material. Secretary, any comments on that? It's more of editorial.
Actually, under general guidelines for drafting, was is correct, but we'll change it around to make it sound better, and we can put the word ICAO in front of guidance material. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. I see no further requests for the floor. So this concludes our consideration of agenda item 30, WP 577. Thank you very, very much for your time, your cooperation. Is that Ireland? Ireland, you have the floor. What's that?
Norway.
Nicaragua? Nicaragua, you have the floor.
Yes, I just want to clarify some confusion. We're not asking that you include COSESNA in the last line, just the fact change the tense of the verb, but we were asking that COSESNA spoke, or to have COSESNA speak using this mic.
Oh, I see.
Okay, Secretary.
Just as a proposal, because we don't often identify specifically the actual person who spoke, but I'm just wondering, would it be better that in the first sentence of 30.75, where it says the Commission reviewed A40 Working Paper 69 presented by Nicaragua, could we put after that supported by COSESNA?
Nicaragua?
No, there's confusion. We're not asking you to include COSESNA in the paragraph.
Leave it as it is.
Solo la corrección de la forma.
We just want to make sure we're changing the tense of the verb from the past tense to the present tense. That's all. That's the second request.
All right, noted. Thank you very much. So this brings us to the end of the consideration of agenda item or working paper 577 on the report of agenda item 30. And this also concludes consideration of the reports of agenda items 27, 28, 29, and 30. These reports we've adopted will be forwarded to the plenary for consideration and approval. We have one other item on the order of business, that is any other business, AOB. So the floor is open for AOB, any other business. Nicaragua, can you put off your microphone? Thank you. Trinidad and Tobago.
Just to say thank you for the work done over the last couple of days, and we look forward to the reading of the final report.
Thank you, Trinidad and Tobago. United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. In our turn as well, we would like to express our appreciation and gratitude to your wise leadership, Mr. Chairman. We would like also to thank the Secretariat for their hard work, all the states and organizations who have submitted very fruitful for discussions working papers, and thank you very much.
Thank you, United Arab Emirates. I see no further request for the floor. Then, on my part, I also wish to thank all of you distinguished delegates for the excellent cooperation throughout our 5 meetings. The meetings were very vibrant, lively, and we had very interesting and healthy discussions. And for this assembly, we had a record number of working papers. It affirms the interest member states are showing in the activities of the organization, which is our organization. We are ICAO, and we've delegated responsibilities to the council and the secretariat to act on our behalf. So I'm particularly pleased at the level of participation, level of turnout, and I do hope that collectively and in the spirit of collaboration and no country left behind, we will all work to ensure the attainment of a higher level of safety and aviation efficiency, a higher level of security and sustainability of the global air transport system. I thank you very much for your support and cooperation. Thank you. I'll hand over to the Secretariat for any administrative announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, there's frankly nothing administrative that we need to say at this point. The reports will be turned and republished as a new set of working papers for review in the plenary of the Assembly, and the schedule for that activity will be published in due course. Beyond that, on behalf of all of the members of the Secretariat across all of the Secretariat and the organization at headquarters, regional offices, all of our support, and especially the support from our interpreters, I'd just like to say thank you to the members of the Commission for your engagement and the hard work to prepare for what we believe has been a very effective checkpoint on the road to implementing the next versions of the Global Air Navigation Plan, the Global Aviation Safety Plan, and all of the associated work program elements. We'll be counting on you to execute on all of these actions. You are ICAO, and the Secretariat is looking forward to working with you to enact the actions that you have proposed. And finally, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your leadership and collaboration working with the Secretariat to prepare for this very complex set of agenda items and for your able leadership in executing the discussion in the time frame allotted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, I also have to thank the Secretariat for their hard work. I mean, we introduced the team at the beginning of the session, and they are here for us. And what I have realized is a number of states do not really liaise with ICAO to help resolve a number of issues. We have the regional offices which are available to us, plus the headquarters. So let's make use of the Secretariat more effectively and efficiently. So on this note, the meeting is adjourned. Enjoy your afternoon, and Secretariat will publish the date when the reports will be considered by the plenary. So look out on your app for the approval of the reports at the plenary. Thank you very much. Bon appétit. Congratulations, Simon. Thank you.
Very well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we get a photograph?
A photograph, yes.